Welcome back. For the Connor Happer Show on 1620 The Zone and on 1620thezone.com. Connor Happer, Josh Odson with you. Nebraska and Rutgers tomorrow for just the 7th time ever. This will be at Memorial Stadium. These two teams will meet in Lincoln for the first time since 2017. Nebraska and Rutgers have played each other as members of the Big Ten 5 previous times.
Oh, wow.
2014, 2015, 2017, 2020, Champions Week. In 2022, Nebraska taking each of those games. Nebraska also met Rutgers in 1920. November 2nd, 1920. For a game staged at the Polo Grounds in New York. We'd like to give a shout out to, first of all, Huskerbacks, who has a page like this that's just kind of brought everything together for every Nebraska football game that really has ever existed. It's very cool, and this is basically what got me started down this road, because I was looking at the page last night that said, well, and first of all, I gave you the stat earlier about how Nebraska's 6-0 against them, and they've never lost to Rutgers before. Very few Nebraska opponents ever they've played this many times and never lost to.
Never lost,
like LeVar Ball would say. Nebraska, in the game at the Polo Grounds, wore scarlet jerseys, wore their home reds, and Rutgers wore black. This confused the spectators at the Polo Grounds, and that made them actually root for Nebraska until they figured it out. They figured, whoa, these guys are really good and fast and tall.
Took a minute.
It's very, very interesting. So then I went into the archives a little bit and found a couple articles. So this is they played on Election Day in 1920. The election between Republican nominee Warren G. Harding. He beat Democrat James M. Cox in the 1920 election. So I was reading
on a Tuesday.
They played on a Tuesday, Josh, because Nebraska was set to go out and play Penn State on Saturday, and they stopped off in the big city. They went to a show the night before the game at the Hippodrome.
Oh yeah,
yeah, that's right. According to the New York Times, they really enjoyed the big city. There were reporters around who were there when Nebraska arrived into the big city, and they were marveling at Nebraska's size and weight. In fact, here's from the preview story, Josh. This isn't from the one that you have.
Okay.
Here's from the preview story. The Huskers are of the sturdiest aggregations of pigskin chasers which have ever breezed into this staid old town.
Yeah, I follow.
When seen at the Pennsylvania Hotel yesterday, grouped around their coach, Henry F. Schulte, they looked like young giants. Several members of the squad, which counting substitutes, numbers 25, stand 6 feet tall and over. Imagine that, a 6 foot tall person. One man, Weller, a tackle, is 6'3", and one of the tallest men who ever donned moleskins. Nor are these men lacking in weight to accompany their height. 7 of them mark up 190 pounds and over.
Oh my!
When they step on the scales. And although not all the heavyweights are in the first 11, the forwards facing Rutgers at the start of the game today will average 185 pounds. Basically, they said, oh my God, these Nebraska guys are gigantic. What are we going to do? Rutgers was not very good at the time. And one of the takeaways from afterwards was that Nebraska wasn't very good either, even though they crushed Rutgers. And guess what? They ended up being right. About that. So, Josh, you've now skimmed through this very difficult to read New York Times article that I've sent your direction. You go ahead and pick up and put down wherever you'd like.
Oh, okay.
You go ahead and jump right in, because I could tell you, after reading this entire thing multiple times last night, there's never a dull moment. This is from the Gamer. Wednesday, November 3rd, on page 12 of the New York Times, after Nebraska beat Rutgers for the very first time in program history, 28-0 in front of 15,000 at the Polo Grounds. 1940s, man. How'd it sound?
I want to be clear. This isn't a bit. We're actually just reading from the newspaper.
Dead serious. Yeah, the Josh did the whole Lucky Strike thing. These were words that were written. They'll just be said to you in a funny voice.
Nebraska speed humbles Rutgers. Cornhuskers' lightning gridiron tactics sweep them to victory by 28-0. Fumbles played part. Sanford's pupils err at critical times. Crowd of 15,000 watches battle at Polo Grounds. They grow something besides corn out in the prairies of Nebraska. An avalanche of football warriors descended yesterday upon the unsuspecting Rutgers 11 at the Polo Grounds. A great, husky, fearless mass of gridiron terrors, coached by a square-jawed individual named Henry Schulte. And when they had finished with George Foster Sanford's cripples, the score stood 28-0.
Cripples! Cripples!
I'm reading. It's a direct quote.
Cripples! They call them cripples? You can't do that.
A crowd of more than 15,000 brought umbrellas and raincoats to the baseball lot after they had attended to their civic duty of voting, and for the rest of the afternoon wondered if all Western 11s were of the same breed. If so, their advice to Eastern graduate managers is to dispense with intersectional football games. I think that means fold the program.
Yeah, that's exactly right. These guys were ruthless. They called them cripples and said, hey, just pack it in. Right.
New York won't see any faster or harder football all the rest of this season. Yesterday's first period left the spectators breathless at what Nebraska's Gatling gun hammer... we have one of those.
Gatling gun hammering
must have done to Rutgers was evident in the second quarter when the Cornhuskers pushed across the first two of their touchdowns.
2 touchdowns in the first quarter, huh?
Their tactics were lightning fast. They had been drilled to execute their plays in rapid-fire order, all aimed to sweep their opponents off their feet with this speed. But if any old fogey spectators of an ancient school of football were skeptical over this radicalism, they rewatch it continue. An ordinary team would have welcomed the 2-minute intermission between the first and second periods, but not Nebraska. Those giant Bohemians, Hubka.
Yeah, they had some giant Bohemians. Yeah,
Puselic,
Hubka, Puselic,
and the dodging eel-like backfield sensation Hotley trotted to the other end of the gridiron, eager for more. Vader boys who scampered from their sidelines with sponges and
water boys
who scampered out from the sidelines with sponges and dippers were waved aside in disgust by those rough and ready Huskies.
Pause. What's a dipper?
That's that thing Scott Frost had in his mouth. Here, kid, have a dipper.
Sam writes in.
Hi, Sam.
It's gonna be weird to think about. I thought about this exact thing last night when I was reading this. He says, it's weird to think our current dialect is going to be old-timey someday.
Yeah.
What are they going to do when they look at the archives of what we've put out to the world? Because they thought they were normal. We think they're insane.
Literally insane.
They are crazy. So skip ahead to wherever you'd like, Josh. You don't have to go through the whole story. This is a long gamer. This is like a Sam McEwen style, really picking it apart quarter by quarter. Hell, you could skip toward the end if you'd like. That's where some of the last thoughts come in about the Nebraska team, the team of Nebraskans. But by the way, cats are funny. Says a dipper is a ladle. Jesse says I looked up 1920 Rutgers. They got shut out 6 out of 9 games.
Oh, man.
Jeff says, dang, I've lost weight. I'm 190 pounds. Real self-esteem boost. This is what you have to understand. I always forget about this. People on the East Coast specifically, and definitely during that time, very small.
Very small.
Very, very small. They had probably never seen a 6-foot-tall person. And then they saw a whole bunch of them on a college football team and said, what is this sorcery? This is absurd.
All right, so we want to do the last section.
You go wherever you'd like. Honestly, I don't think there's a dull spot in here.
Okay.
I don't think there's a dull spot in here.
Nebraska's fourth and last touchdown was made possible when Moore intercepted one of Maloney's forward passes on Rutgers' 43-yard line. Thompson, who had replaced Hotley, tore around left end for an 18-yard gain, and Dana, who succeeded Hubka, contributed another first down on 2 rushes. On Rutgers' 15-yard line, Thompson heaved a rather high forward pass toward Swanson. The ball actually caromed off the hands of 2 Rutgers men, neither of whom could hold on to it, and Swanson was able to jump up, gather it in before it could drop to the ground, and scoot over for a touchdown. Day kicked the goal for the 28th point. Rutgers made only 1 first down in the first 2 periods of play, while Nebraska was netting 12 exclusive of those provided as the result of penalties. The hell does that mean?
They just have a way with words.
I'm not comprehending the words.
You can understand why the 1920s people had so much riz. They rizzed up with the ladies with their words.
In the second half, each made 5. Rutgers was penalized for a total of only 20 yards, while Nebraska drew about 59 yards of punishment from referee toughs. So Nebraska's still getting screwed over by these refs.
100% Big Ten refs.
The last penalty of about 19 yards being half the distance to its goal. Rutgers was forced to punt 8 times to Nebraska's 6. The Cornhuskers, I lost my place. The Cornhuskers tried 7 forward passes.
7!
3 working successfully. 2 of them for 15 yards each accounted for 2 of the touchdowns.
Wow.
Rutgers resorted to aerial tactics 11 times and worked 4 successfully, the longest being a gain of 20 yards in the first period. The Westerners did a bit of sightseeing last night and attended the performance at the Hippodrome. Coach Schulte will take his Cornhuskers to State College, PA, this morning for a couple of days' practice and preparation for the clash with Penn State on Saturday.
There you go. That's the story. Now I really want to know what play they went to at the Hippodrome.
All right.
There's no way. Are you going to look up what they were playing at in 1920 at the Hippodrome? There's no way that the internet. There's no way that the internet can know this. I'm already surprised that I found this. This is in the New York Times archives. I'll have you guys know that I spent my money just to be able to read these and just be able to have Josh read these.
Everyone thanks you for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not able
there's
to find
no,
it. There's no I
chance.
can't find the 1920 lineup for the Hippodrome.
But basically, they knew that Rutgers was going to get smoked, and they did because they saw the Nebraska players get off of the train, and they were like, whoa, these guys are giants. And then they also knew they must have had a scout on Penn State because they thought that Nebraska was going to get smoked going to Penn State, and I think they lost that game, too. I can pull up the 1920s schedule. Nebraska, so this is from the Husker Max page. Nebraska would play again 4 days later at Penn State with an almost completely opposite result that came as predicted by the Evening Telegram. Traveling by train, the Huskers were gone for a week and a half and visited Niagara Falls during the trip. Now, I mean, I went too deep in the water to not talk about this for 15 minutes today on the show.
But we thank you for it.
So I apologize. Also, can you believe, and Sam writes in, can you believe the amount of forward passes that they threw in that game? 11 forward passes for Rutgers, only 4 of them working to success.
But I mean that's what they talked about in the 90s was when Nebraska got off the bus, the other team knew it was over.
That's exactly right.
Same thing in 1920.
Some things don't change, Josh. Not only did Rutgers fail utterly to negotiate a single first down during the opening period, but it had the ball only 3 times, twice trying to rush it, only to punt, and once punting immediately. One of Voorhees' short punts gave Nebraska the ball 40 yards from its opponent's goal, and thence began the first march toward a touchdown with the wizard Harley and the veteran star Hubka alternating in rushing. But on the half-yard line, Rutgers held and wrestled the ball away after a profitless 4th down. After punting to midfield, Rutgers was again pressed backward to its 15-yard line. Nebraska lost its second chance hero by pinning its hopes on a forward pass that was grounded. Rutgers took the ball on its 20-yard mark and used doubtful judgment by trying a forward pass so close to its goal. Could you imagine passing in that situation? They were probably out of the shotgun like a bunch of freaks.
Okay, everybody stop.
What?
Jose, thank you in the YouTube chat. We have found the show that was playing at the Hippodrome in 1920.
All right, what do we got?
The musical Good Times ran 456 times from 1920 to 1921 at the Hippodrome.
So they went to Good Times.
They went to Good Times.
At the Hippodrome.
A young Cary Grant.
Jeff says a musical called Good Times.
Yeah.
Wow.
A young Cary Grant had just arrived from England and made his American stage debut as a stilt walker in this production. It premiered August 9th, 1920 at the New York Hippodrome.
Yes, they were there November 2nd.
Uh-huh. Look at that.
Thank you.
We did it, everybody.
How did you guys find the playbill from the Hippodrome in 1920? It's amazing stuff. What a historic time for our country, and that's deep in our lineage.
And Warren G. Harding united America.
Warren G. Harding
as president-elect.
Brought us all together. Happer's Meme Guy writes in, poll question, did 1920s writers have Riz?
Okay, yeah.
I would think so. These guys were grinding. They were at the team hotel trying to get a scout as they got off of the train. I mean, that's pretty special stuff. That's effort.
How many Z's and Riz, everybody?
2 Z's.
Nailed it.
Hey, you want to do 3?
Did 19? No, I didn't know if it was 1 or 2.
Okay. Yeah, it's 2. It's 2. So, Great Gamer by they didn't have bylines, so I don't know who wrote this.
Warren G. Harding died in 1923.
Wow, he died in office?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. It's first time I'm hearing about this right now.
He also had an extramarital affair.
Warren.
Hank on YouTube. Did you just say President H united the nation? That's not what I said, technically.
Jeff writes in, I asked, how'd you find this? And he said, quick Google search. I could be your new producer. Josh, what happened? You know how to Google?
I was spelling it Hippodrone.
Well, that'll do it. That'll explain it.